Imagine for a moment that everything that gives you security disappears. The person who always listens to you stops answering your messages. Your best friend moves to another country. The partner with whom you have shared years decides to follow their own path. In that instant, what remains? Who are you when there is no one to listen to you, to validate you, to remind you that you exist? Many people live in fear of this scenario. And I get it. We have been taught that we need others to feel complete. But the Stoics thought differently. They believed that true freedom is born when you are able to be at peace with yourself, even if the whole world leaves you alone. In this video, I am not going to tell you to isolate yourself, nor to live shut away. I am going to show you how to cultivate an independence so solid that your happiness does not depend on anyone's presence, words, or actions. And when you achieve it, you will realize that loneliness stops being an enemy and becomes your ally. Because learning to live without anyone is learning to live with yourself. Living emotionally dependent on others is like building a house on sand. Today it may seem firm, but a small wave is enough to make everything collapse. When you do not learn to live without anyone, your life becomes a constant search for approval. Every decision you make, every step you take is conditioned by what others think or say about you. And the worst part is that many times you do not even notice. You start measuring your worth by how many messages you receive, by how many people react to your posts, or by whether that special person pays you attention. When approval arrives, you feel relief, but it is momentary. When it does not arrive, the emptiness opens like a deep well, and you go back to searching, to begging, even for a little validation to cover it. Emotional dependence also has a silent cost. Your time. Hours waiting for a reply that never comes. Minutes checking your phone to see if someone has already seen your message. Whole days in which your mood goes up or down according to someone else's attitude. And then it happens. That person drifts away by their own decision or by life circumstances. Suddenly, the source of your security disappears. That is when the blow arrives, and with it, fear, anxiety, even despair. Think about it. How many times have you avoided doing something just because you did not have company? Going to a restaurant, traveling, watching a movie. Simple things you stop enjoying because you have no one to go with. It is as if you handed others the key to your freedom. The Stoics said this dependence is an invisible chain. You do not feel it all the time, but it ties you down. It keeps you from moving freely. It conditions you to live for others and not for yourself. And that is the hardest truth. As long as you do not learn to live without anyone, you are not truly free. Introduction to the Stoic concept. For the Stoics, true strength was not found in having more things or surrounding yourself with more people, but in self-sufficiency. They called it Autarkeia, the ability to be sufficient unto yourself to live in accordance with virtue and inner peace regardless of external circumstances. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Yes. In other words, your well-being must not depend on anything external, not on approval, not on company, not on recognition. This does not mean living isolated from the world, but living so that your inner balance does not wobble with every external change. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic, expressed it with a clarity that still resonates today. Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig. His message was simple yet profound. What you truly need to be well is already within you. The problem is that we tend to look for it outside, in people, in relationships, in promises that are not always kept. Seneca also warned about this trap. He said that whoever needs too much from others becomes a willing slave, and that the wise person enjoys company but does not need it to live. There is a big difference between emotional independence and isolation. Emotional independence is like having a solid home. You can invite whomever you wish, enjoy their company, share your table. But if one day they leave, the house still stands. Isolation, on the other hand, is closing doors and windows, letting no one in out of fear or distrust. And that is not what the Stoics advocated. In the modern world, this idea matters more than ever. We are hyper-connected, yet paradoxically more dependent on others' validation than ever before in history. We post to receive likes, we measure our worth by the attention we get, and we confuse constant contact with real connection. Applying Autarkeia today means learning to enjoy a coffee without checking your phone every 2 minutes, taking a trip simply because you want to, writing your thoughts for yourself without expecting approval. It means ultimately living with others by choice, not by need. The challenge is not to withdraw from the world, but to build a life in which you can walk steadily even if no one walks beside you. That is the essence of Stoic self-sufficiency, a state in which loneliness stops being scary because it is not a void. It is a space that belongs to you. Practice 1. Mastery of thoughts. The Stoics knew the most important battle is not fought against other people. It is fought inside our own minds. If you want to learn to live without depending on anyone, the first step is to master your thoughts. Because before you feel anxiety over someone's absence, before you feel that knot in your stomach, there is always a thought that triggers it. That thought is like a spark that lights the entire emotional blaze. Epictetus made it clear. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This means the cause of your dependence is not that this person left or did not write to you. It is what you interpret from that action. I no longer matter. I am going to end up alone. I will not be able to go on without him or her. The problem is that we let those thoughts settle as if they were absolute truths, when in reality they are only judgments. And judgments can be questioned. The Stoic technique. When you notice a dependent thought, do not accept it immediately. Observe it as if you were a spectator. Ask yourself, is this a fact or an interpretation? What real evidence do I have that this is true? What other explanation could exist? For example, if you think, without this person I cannot be happy. Stop, breathe, write it on a piece of paper and then answer yourself, can I really not be happy, or will it simply be hard to adapt? Have I been happy before I met this person? Is it possible that my happiness depends more on what I think and do than on who is with me? At first, your mind will try to convince you that this thought is indisputable, but little by little, with practice, you will start to see it for what it is, an idea you can choose to accept or not. Practical example. Imagine you are at home on a Friday night. Your friends cannot go out, your partner is busy, and suddenly you think, how sad. I am alone. I should be with someone to have fun. If you let that thought run free, you will feel sadness, boredom, even anxiety. But if you stop it and question it, you can change the experience. Being alone tonight gives me the chance to read that book I had pending, or to watch a movie I truly want to watch without negotiating with anyone. This can be valuable too. It is not about fooling yourself, but about seeing more options than your mind presents on autopilot. Daily exercise, thought log. For 1 week, carry a small notebook or use your phone's notes app. Every time you detect a thought that begins with, without X, I cannot, or I need X in order to, write it down. Then, at the end of the day, read it again and reframe each one in terms of independence. For example, original thought, I need them to text me so I can feel loved. Reframed, I can feel loved because I value myself and recognize my worth regardless of what others do. This simple habit trains you not to believe everything you think. Over time, you will begin to identify these thoughts instantly, and you will be able to replace them before they drag you along. Marcus Aurelius wrote his own reflections each night to remember what was under his control and what was not. That daily act was his way of clearing his mind of useless judgments and strengthening his emotional independence. Mastering your thoughts is not a matter of a day, but if every time you detect a dependent idea you observe it, question it, and reframe it, you will be breaking, little by little, the invisible chains that tie you to others. And here is something you must remember. The mind is like a muscle. The more you train it to question, the stronger it becomes, and the harder it will be for dependence to trap you again. Practice 2. Control of expectations. If the first enemy of emotional independence is dependent thinking, the second is expectation. Frustration rarely comes from what actually happens. It comes from reality not matching what we expected. You expect your friend to call and they do not. You expect your partner to understand you without explaining yourself and they do not. You expect others to react as you would, and they do not. Each time this happens, you feel a mix of disappointment, anger, and sadness, and at its core, the root is simple. We want the world to work by our rule. Epictetus made it clear more than 2,000 years ago. When something happens, the only thing you can decide is whether you will suffer because of it or not. For the Stoics, this was not resignation but realism. They knew that people are imperfect, that many times they act driven by their interests, their emotions, their ignorance, and instead of fighting against that, they accepted it as part of human nature. The Stoic exercise. The practice here is simple but powerful. Anticipate others' imperfection. Before you enter a situation or interact with someone, remind yourself, this person can make mistakes. They may not react as I expect. They may not keep their word. You do not do this to become cynical, but so that when it happens, it does not surprise or hurt you. If later the person acts positively, you will enjoy it as a gift, not as something you took for granted. For example, if you are going to meet a friend who is always late, instead of going in expecting that this time they will be on time, assume they probably will not be. If they arrive on time, perfect. If they are late, you were prepared and your peace will not be affected. Stoic story. It is said that once, Epictetus was teaching a group of students when one of them complained, "My brother has offended me. I did not expect that from him." Epictetus replied, "Did you expect someone who has not learned not to offend to behave as if he had learned it? That is like expecting a fig not to have seeds." The teaching was clear. If you understand the nature of something or someone, you are not disappointed when they act according to that nature. Application in the modern world. In our time, this means understanding that not everyone will think like you. Not everyone will value what you do. Not everyone will be there when you need them. And that is not necessarily bad. It means you can free yourself from the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. Direct benefit. When you lower your expectations, you do not become indifferent, you become free from feeling constantly let down. Free from living on an emotional roller coaster based on what others do or do not do. The Stoic does not stop having relationships or trusting people. They simply understand that each person acts according to their character, their circumstances, and their level of awareness. And that does not always match what the Stoic expects. If you want to live without depending on anyone, start here. Expect less from others and more from yourself. Practice 3. Build a solid inner world. If thoughts and expectations are the first two pillars of emotional independence, the third is having an inner world so rich that you never feel empty, even when you are alone. For the Stoics, the true refuge was not in a walled city nor in someone's arms. It was within their own minds. Marcus Aurelius, who spent much of his life on military campaigns far from Rome, wrote, "Men seek retreats for themselves in the country, by the seaside, on the mountains, but the best retreat is in one's own soul." That inner world is built with habits that nourish your mind and spirit, not with distractions that merely fill your time. Habits of productive solitude, deep reading. I'm not talking about skimming quick headlines or social media posts. I mean sitting with a good book, philosophy, history, literature, and letting your thoughts travel beyond your immediate life. Reading does not just give you knowledge, it gives you perspective. It reminds you that others before you have lived, suffered, and overcome what you face today. Meditation or daily reflection. It can be in absolute silence or with a guided technique. What matters is training the mind to observe without reacting, to recognize your emotions without being dragged by them. Even 5 minutes a day can help you stay calm when the outer world is in turmoil. Journaling or reflective writing. Just as Marcus Aurelius did in his meditations, write what you think, what you feel, what you have learned. Putting ideas on paper organizes them, and many times you will discover solutions you could not see while you were just circling them in your head. Illustrative example. Imagine Clara, a young woman who all her life depended on her friends' approval to feel secure. Every weekend she needed plans, company, constant messages, but one day, due to circumstances, her friends began to have other priorities. At first, Clara felt a huge emptiness. She then decided to fill that emptiness differently. She began to read each morning for half an hour before work, to write in a journal at night, and to meditate for 10 minutes before sleeping. In a few months, she noticed a profound change. She no longer needed to go out every night to feel alive, because she had found company in her own thoughts and in the personal growth she cultivated. When her friends came back, she still enjoyed them, but now her happiness did not depend on their presence. Strengthening your emotional center. A solid inner world is like an anchor. When you have habits that nourish you and connect you with yourself, nothing external can drag you easily. Praise does not lift you too high. Criticism does not sink you. You stand firm at your center. Loneliness stops being a threat and becomes an opportunity. The moment when you grow the most, because you are with yourself without filters or distractions. Remember, a tree does not grow strong because of what it receives from outside, but because of the depth of its roots. Your habits of productive solitude are those roots, and when they are firm, you can relate to others from abundance, not from lack. Practice 4. Relationships from freedom. One of the biggest misunderstandings about emotional independence is to think it means cutting ties or stopping loving people. Nothing could be further from the truth. Living from freedom is not stopping loving, it is stopping possessing. For the Stoics, loving with possessive attachment was like trying to hold water in your hands. The more you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Epictetus summed it up like this: when you kiss your child or your wife, remember that you kiss a mortal, not to frighten you, but so that, if one day they are gone, you will not be devastated. It may sound harsh, but the aim was not to cool love, but to purify it, to enjoy every moment with someone without clinging to the idea that they will be with you forever. Relating without possessive attachment. Possessive attachment is born of fear. Fear of losing, fear of being alone, fear that life will change. That fear makes us watch, control, demand, and paradoxically it pushes away the very people we love. When you relate from freedom, you understand that no one belongs to you and that you do not belong to anyone. Then, instead of trying to hold on, you focus on fully enjoying the present moment with that person. It is like walking through a garden and smelling a flower. You do not need to pluck it to enjoy it. You appreciate it as it is while it is there. And if one day it is no longer there, you are grateful for having had it close. Stoic exercise, conscious gratitude. Each day, spend a few minutes thinking about the important people in your life. Instead of taking them for granted, make a conscious act of gratitude. Today I am grateful that my friend listens without judging me. Today I am grateful for my partner's smile upon waking. Today I am grateful for my mother's advice, even if I do not always follow it. This exercise reminds you that people are a gift, not a guarantee. When you adopt this mindset, every interaction becomes more valuable because you are not distracted trying to hold on to it. You are present, living it. Illustrative story. Imagine Javier, who used to feel anxious every time his partner went out without him. He feared they would grow apart, that she would meet someone else, that the relationship would change. One day, after reading Seneca, he decided to practice conscious gratitude. Each time his partner went out, instead of worrying, he focused on remembering and appreciating what they shared. Over time, Javier noticed something curious. His anxiety decreased and the relationship improved. There was no pressure or distrust anymore, only enjoyment of time together and freedom for each to live their own life. The final benefit: when you relate from freedom, people stay by choice, not by obligation, and you can love more deeply because your love is no longer contaminated by the fear of losing. This does not mean it does not hurt when someone leaves. It means you do not break. You know that your well-being does not depend on their staying, but on the strength of your own inner world. Practice 5. Social minimalism. We live in an era where people boast of having hundreds or even thousands of friends on social media. But ironically, many of those connections are superficial, short-lived, and when you really need them, they disappear. The Stoics knew it was not about having many ties, but the right ones. Seneca put it this way: keep company with those who can make you better and whom you can make better. For him, friendship was a serious investment, not a number on a list. His circle of trust was small but deep, people with whom he could talk philosophy, ask for honest advice, or share silences without discomfort. Reducing the superficial. Social minimalism means reducing the number of superficial relationships that merely take up space but add no value. It is not about being unfriendly or withdrawn, but about recognizing that your time, attention, and energy are limited. If most of your interactions revolve around empty conversations, gossip, or appearances, do not be surprised if you feel lonely even when surrounded by people. Instead, if you choose to devote yourself only to relationships that nourish you and to which you also contribute, you will feel that every encounter has meaning. Prioritize quality over quantity. Think of your relationships as a garden. If you have too many plants and cannot water them well, many will wither from neglect. But if you have few and give them the care they need, they will bloom. Applied to social life. Assess honestly which people add and which drain your energy. Do not be afraid to set boundaries or distance yourself from those who do not respect your values. Invest time in connections that foster mutual growth. Imagine Laura, who said yes to every social invitation so as not to feel left out. She went to parties she did not enjoy, kept forced conversations, and came home exhausted. One day she decided to shrink her social calendar and save it only for people with whom she felt authentic and at peace. In a few months, her social life became smaller but also deeper. She discovered that true companionship is not measured by the number of faces around you, but by the quality of the moments you share. Social minimalism frees you from the pressure to be everywhere and allows you to cultivate relationships that truly matter. And when your circle is small but solid, Learning to live without depending on anyone becomes much easier because the connections you have are based on choice and respect, not on need. This is where everything comes together. Because true independence is not cutting ties, living isolated, or stopping loving. True independence is knowing that if one day everything around you disappears, you will still stand. That is what the Stoics called inner strength, a foundation so solid that it does not sway with the winds of absence, criticism, or disappointment. When you master your thoughts, the invisible chains of mental dependence break. When you control your expectations, you stop giving your peace away to others' whims. When you build a solid inner world, loneliness becomes a fertile space where you grow. When you relate from freedom, love becomes pure, without fear, without control. And when you practice social minimalism, your bonds become more valuable because they are chosen, not imposed. All this is not theory, it is daily training. A constant choice to fortify yourself within so that nothing from without can knock you down. Think of a tree that, even if its leaves are taken in winter, remains alive thanks to the strength of its roots. You are that tree. People, places, circumstances are the leaves. They may stay or go, but as long as your roots are firm, you can always bloom again. True independence is not living alone. It is knowing that you can be alone and keep smiling, keep creating, keep loving, and keep being you. I want you to take one clear idea from this video. Self-sufficiency is ultimate freedom. When you stop depending on others' approval, presence, or behavior to feel good, you regain full control of your life. You are no longer a leaf dragged by the wind of others' opinions. You are the tree that decides where it grows. And this does not mean you do not need anyone. It means you do not depend on anyone to maintain your peace, your joy, or your purpose. You love more freely, you enjoy more fully, and you live with a serenity that cannot be stolen. The Stoics understood it centuries ago, and today you can apply it. It is not a change that happens overnight, but it is a change that begins with a single step. That is why I want to propose a challenge. For the next 7 days, choose one of the practices we have seen today. Mastering your thoughts, controlling your expectations, building your inner world, relating from freedom, or practicing social minimalism, and apply it every day. Write it down, watch yourself, and notice how your way of feeling and reacting changes. Now I want to hear from you. Comment below. What is the first thing you will do to depend less on others? I will love to read you, and I am sure your words will inspire others who are watching this video. Remember, true freedom is not won when everything is under control, but when you are under control no matter what happens outside. So start today! Build within you a place so strong and so full of life that no one can tear it down.